In the next hour, you'll discover why the Deathwing aren't just elite warriors. They're the Imperium's most dangerous secret keepers, hunting enemies so terrible that even speaking their names could damn an entire chapter. By the end, you'll understand why these bone-armored giants would rather die than let their truth escape into the light. They move through corridors that have never known sunlight, in a fortress that drifts between stars like a tomb. The sound of their footsteps should echo, ceramite on stone, the mechanical whir of ancient servos, the soft hiss of recycled air through rebreathers. But there's only silence. Perfect, absolute silence. These are the Deathwing. You've heard the stories, perhaps. Elite Terminators of the Dark Angels chapter. First Company veterans clad in bone-white armor, wielding weapons that could level city blocks. Masters of teleportation assault, breakers of sieges. The tip of the spear when the Imperium needs its enemies not just defeated, but erased. All of this is true. All of this is also a lie. Because the real story of the Deathwing isn't written in the annals of Imperial glory. It's carved into hearts of warriors who have learned that sometimes the greatest enemy wears the same face as a brother. Sometimes the most dangerous heretic is the one who once knelt beside you in prayer. And sometimes loyalty demands not just that you kill for the Emperor, but that you kill to keep his Imperium from learning truths that would tear it apart. In the deepest chambers of the rock, their mobile fortress monastery, there are cells that don't officially exist. Interrogation chambers where questions are asked in languages that predate the Imperium itself. And in those chambers, the Deathwing conduct a war that has raged for 10,000 years. Not against Xenos, not against chaos, but against their own past. Against brothers who fell not to corruption, but to despair. Against warriors who carry the same gene seed, bear the same heraldry, and once swore the same oaths. The fallen angels. Most who serve the Imperium will live and die without ever knowing this name. Most dark angels themselves will fight for centuries without learning the truth. But the Deathwing know. They've always known. And that knowledge has made them into something more terrifying than any enemy the galaxy has ever produced. Hunters who understand their prey intimately, because their prey is themselves. The galaxy speaks of the Dark Angels' prowess in battle, their ancient lineage, their mysterious ways. What it doesn't speak of, what it can never be allowed to speak of, is the civil war that tore the First Legion apart, the betrayal that scattered brothers across time and space like seeds of shame. The truth that, if revealed, would see one of the Imperium's founding chapters branded as heretics and destroyed. This knowledge sits like a weight in the chest of every Deathwing warrior. They carry it through every battle, every mission, every quiet moment in the Rock's halls. It changes them, shapes them, makes them into something that exists in the space between loyalty and lies, between duty and damnation. Some call them the Emperor's most elite warriors. Others whisper that they're the Imperium's greatest mistake. The truth, as always with the Dark Angels, lies somewhere in the shadow between light and darkness. Tonight, we step into that shadow. We walk with the bone-clad giants who paint their armor the color of death not because they expect to die, but because they've already accepted that some truths are worth killing for and dying to protect. This is the story of warriors who guard the Imperium's darkest secret, even from the Imperium itself. This is a story of hunters who have spent 10 millennia pursuing prey that mirrors their own souls. This is the story of the Deathwing, and the burden that has defined them since the first brother raised a weapon against his own blood. But to understand why these warriors walk in eternal silence, you must first understand where this began. Not with betrayal, but with a dream. Not in the grim darkness of the far future, but in the earliest days of the Great Crusade, when the Emperor's vision seemed as bright and pure as Terra's rising sun, and the First Legion stood as the prototype for all that would follow. But even from their very creation, the Dark Angels were different. While other legions fought in the light, the First Legion was forged to thrive in darkness, and that darkness would eventually consume them from within. Before there were 20 legions, before the Primarchs were scattered to the winds, before the very concept of the Adeptus Astartes had taken its final form, there was a single prototype, a proof of concept. The first, they called them the Dark Angels, though not for the reasons most believe. In those early days on Terra, as the Emperor's gene rights labored in the laboratories beneath the Himalayan peaks, darkness wasn't a metaphor for corruption or evil. It was the darkness of the void itself, the unknown, the unexplored, the spaces between stars where humanity would have to venture to reclaim its birthright. The Dark Angels were designed to be comfortable in that darkness, to thrive where others would falter. But even from the beginning, they were different. While other early Astartes formations were organized along traditional military lines, companies, battalions, standardized equipment, the First Legion developed something more complex, more secretive. Their gene seed, drawn directly from the Emperor's own genetic template, carried not just physical enhancements but psychological ones, an affinity for hierarchy, yes, but also for compartmentalization, for keeping secrets, even from each other. The Terran-born Dark Angels who fought in those early campaigns spoke of circles of trust. Knowledge wasn't shared freely, but distributed based on need, rank, and most importantly, loyalty. A battle brother might fight beside his squad for decades without knowing their true objectives. A sergeant might lead successful campaigns while remaining ignorant of the larger strategic picture. This wasn't paranoia, it was doctrine, and it worked devastatingly well. During the Unification Wars, when the Emperor carved his empire from the radioactive wasteland of old Earth, the Dark Angels operated differently than other Proto-Astartes units. Where the Thunder Warriors smashed through obstacles with brute force, where early Space Marine formations fought as conventional armies, the Dark Angels struck from shadows. They were the knife in the dark, the whisper that preceded the storm, the force that eliminated threats before they could fully manifest. They pioneered tactics that would later define special operations across the galaxy, deep strike insertions behind enemy lines, precision decapitation strikes against command structures, the systematic elimination of entire bloodlines deemed too dangerous to survive. When the Emperor needed a problem not just solved but erased from history entirely, he sent the First Legion, but this effectiveness came with a price. The very traits that made them so lethal, their secrecy, their compartmentalized structure, their willingness to operate in moral gray areas, also isolated them. Other Astartes formations viewed them with suspicion. Imperial army commanders found them difficult to work with. Even within the Legion itself, trust was a carefully rationed commodity. The early Dark Angels developed a culture unlike any other. They spoke in codes within codes, maintained private rituals that predated even their service to the Emperor, and followed a chain of command that seemed to bypass normal military hierarchy entirely. Veterans whispered of the Hexagrammaton, 6 specialized wings within the Legion, each with its own purpose, its own secrets, its own methods. There was the Deathwing. Even then, though they bore a different name and different colors, they were called the Host of Crowns, an elite formation tasked with the most sensitive operations. They were the Emperor's personal executioners, the warriors who carried out missions that could never be officially acknowledged. When entire civilizations needed to vanish without a trace, when heretical technologies had to be not just destroyed but forgotten, when the very memory of a threat needed to be surgically removed from history, they sent the Host of Crowns. These warriors learned early that some knowledge was too dangerous to share, that some victories came at the cost of innocence, that loyalty sometimes meant being hated, mistrusted, even by those you died to protect. They painted their armor in colors that would later be forbidden, deep crimsons and burnished golds that spoke of royal authority and absolute power. They were the Emperor's dark mirror, reflecting not his light, but his necessary shadows. The host of crowns operated from a massive fortress ship that would one day be known as the Rock. Even then, it was ancient, a relic from the dark age of technology, its deepest chambers holding secrets that predated human expansion into space. The Emperor himself had gifted it to the First Legion, claiming it from the ruins of some forgotten war. In its bowels, the Host of Crowns maintained facilities that officially didn't exist. Training chambers where warriors learned to kill not just enemies, but doubts. Vaults where forbidden knowledge was stored and studied. And deepest of all, cells where those who knew too much could be convinced to forget. As the Great Crusade began in earnest and the scattered Primarchs were recovered one by one, the Dark Angels watched and adapted. They saw how other legions changed when reunited with their gene fathers, how the Lunar Wolves became more aggressive under Horus, how the Imperial Fist became more methodical under Dorn, how the Ultramarines became more organized under Guilliman, and they wondered what would happen when their own Primarch was found. What kind of man could command warriors who had learned to trust no one completely? What sort of leader would embrace soldiers who had made darkness their ally? The First Legion had spent decades becoming something unique in the Emperor's arsenal, a force that operated by its own rules, answered its own hierarchy, and carried burdens that would break ordinary men. They had no idea that their Primarch would not only understand these burdens, but add to them. That Lionel Johnson, when finally discovered, would bring with him secrets darker than any the Legion had yet learned to keep. That the reunion they anticipated as salvation would instead become the first step toward their ultimate damnation. On a world called Caliban, shrouded in mystery and haunted by ancient evils, the Emperor's greatest general was about to meet his sons and teach them that some darkness runs deeper than the void between stars. The Horus heresy had torn the galaxy apart. Brother fought brother across 1,000,000 battlefields, while the Imperium bled from wounds that would never fully heal. But for all the horror, for all the betrayals that shattered the Emperor's dream, there was one legion that seemed to stand apart from the madness: the Dark Angels. They had remained loyal. They had fought the traitors wherever they found them. They had never wavered in their dedication to the Emperor's cause. This was the lie that would damn them all. As the heresy reached its climax and Horus marched on Terra itself, Lionel Johnson led his legion through campaign after campaign, hunting the traitor forces with methodical precision. But beneath the surface of their loyalty, cracks had been forming for decades. The very secrecy and paranoia that had made them so effective had also bred resentment, suspicion, and something far more dangerous: doubt. On Caliban, left behind to oversee recruitment and maintain the Legion's homeworld, Luther watched the reports from the front lines with growing bitterness. He had once been the Lion's mentor, his guide, his closest friend. Now he was relegated to training new recruits, while his former student claimed glory among the stars. Worse, as the heresy progressed and communication became increasingly sporadic, Luther began to suspect that he and his Calibanite brothers were being deliberately excluded from the Legion's greatest triumphs. The seeds of corruption found fertile ground in this resentment. Not the obvious taint of chaos that had claimed Horus and his followers, but something subtler: the whispered promise that they were the true inheritors of the Lion's legacy, that Terra had poisoned their Primarch against his own people, that loyalty was a chain that bound them to masters who would never truly accept them. Luther was not alone in these thoughts. Many of the Dark Angels left on Caliban were Calibanites themselves, warriors who had been recruited from the knightly orders, but had never fully integrated with their Terran brothers. They had watched as the Legion's culture shifted, as new rituals replaced old traditions, as their homeworld became little more than a recruitment station for a war they were not deemed worthy to fight. As the heresy neared its end and news of Horus's defeat reached Caliban, these simmering tensions finally erupted. Luther, driven by a toxic mixture of pride, resentment, and something darker that had been growing in Caliban's depths, made a choice that would echo through 10,000 years of shame. He declared independence from the Imperium, claiming that the Lion had been corrupted by Terra and that only the Calibanites remained true to the Legion's original purpose. It was not a decision made in vacuum. The warp storms that had raged during the heresy had touched Caliban differently than other worlds. The ancient evils that slumbered in the planet's core, the same malevolent forces that had spawned the Calibanite monsters, had stirred to new wakefulness. They whispered to Luther and his followers, offering power, validation, and the sweet poison of righteous anger. When Lionel Johnson finally returned to Caliban, expecting to find his homeworld ready to celebrate the heresy's end, he instead found the orbital defenses turned against him. His own warriors fired upon his fleet. The fortresses he had helped build now bristled with weapons aimed at the heavens, and Luther's voice echoed across all frequencies, declaring the Primarch a traitor to his own people. The civil war that followed was apocalyptic in its scope and intimate in its tragedy. This was not the grand clash of ideologies that had defined the broader heresy, but something far more personal, a family destroying itself from within. Brother fought brother in the forest where they had once hunted monsters together. Knights who had sworn the same oaths now crossed blades in the very halls where they had trained as aspirants. The Lion himself descended to the surface, leading the Deathwing and his most loyal warriors in a desperate assault on Caliban's fortress monasteries. They fought through corridors that had once been home, past relics that told the story of their shared brotherhood, toward a confrontation that would define both their damnation and their salvation. In the deepest chambers of the fortress, Lionel Johnson found Luther waiting for him. His former mentor had been chained by the dark powers he had embraced, not into the obvious corruption of a demon prince, but into something subtler and perhaps more terrible. He remained recognizably human, which made his betrayal all the more cutting. The duel between them shook the very foundations of the fortress. Master against student, gene father against son, loyalty against betrayal. It was a battle fought not just with blades but with words, accusations, justifications, and the bitter revelation of truths that had been festering in darkness for too long. What exactly transpired in that final confrontation remains shrouded in mystery, known only to the watchers in the dark who observe from the shadows. Some say Luther struck down the Lion in a moment of grief-fueled madness. Others claim the Lion allowed himself to be wounded, unable to bring himself to kill the man who had shaped his earliest years. The truth may be that both versions are correct, that in that moment of ultimate tragedy, both warriors fell victim to love and hate that bound them together. What is certain is that the confrontation's climax triggered a catastrophe beyond imagining. The warp storms that had been building around Caliban suddenly focused into a single point of impossible fury. The planet's surface convulsed, reality twisted, and in a flash of light that could be seen from orbit, Caliban died. When the storm cleared, only fragments remained. The largest piece, containing the fortress monastery, will become known as the Rock, a mobile monument to loss that would house the dark angels for millennia to come. Luther was found broken and mad, his mind shattered by what he'd done, muttering endless words of regret that came too late to matter. And the Lion? He had vanished. Some say he was spirited away by the Watchers in the dark, placed in healing stasis in chambers so deep that even the inner circle does not know their location. Others whisper that he entered a sleep beyond death, waiting for a time when his legion would need him most. But the greatest tragedy was yet to be discovered. As the survivors searched through the wreckage of their homeworld, they realized that many of Luther's followers had not died in the cataclysm. They had vanished, cast into the warp by the same forces that had destroyed Caliban, scattered across time and space like seeds of shame. These became the fallen angels, and their existence would transform the Dark Angels from a legion of proud warriors into a chapter consumed by the need for redemption. The secret of their existence, the knowledge that some of their own had turned traitor not during the heresy but after it, became a burden that would reshape everything the Dark Angels were and ever could be. From that moment forward, the Deathwing would have a new purpose. No longer just elite warriors or guardians of the Legion's secrets. They became hunters of their own shame, tasked with finding every last fallen angel and bringing them to justice or silence. It was a mission that would span 10,000 years and cost countless lives, all to protect a secret that could destroy them if revealed. The fall of Caliban was not just the death of a world. It was the birth of the Dark Angel's eternal penance, and the moment when the Deathwing truly earned their name as harbingers of death. In the aftermath of Caliban's destruction, as the Dark Angels counted the cost of their shame, a decision was made in the deepest chambers of what would become the Rock. The First Company would no longer be merely elite warriors. They would become the keepers of the ultimate secret, the hunters of their own fallen brothers, and the guardians of a truth so dangerous that its revelation could damn them all. They would become the Deathwing. To understand what the Deathwing truly is, you must abandon everything you think you know about Space Marine Organization. Yes, they are the First Company of the Dark Angels chapter. Yes, they are elite Terminator armor veterans. But these surface truths are merely the mask they wear for the wider Imperium. Beneath this facade lies something far more complex and infinitely more dangerous. The Deathwing exists as a chapter within a chapter, bound by oaths that supersede even their loyalty to the Emperor himself. Every warrior who joins their ranks undergoes a transformation that goes beyond the physical enhancement of Terminator armor. They become custodians of knowledge that could shatter the Imperium's faith in one of its founding chapters. Recruitment into the Deathwing is not based solely on martial prowess, though it is required. Above all, candidates must possess unshakable psychological stability, absolute commitment to secrecy, and the spiritual strength to bear truths that have broken lesser men. The selection process can take decades as potential candidates are observed, tested, and gradually exposed to increasingly sensitive information. The structure reflects this need for absolute security. Unlike other First Companies that might number around 100 warriors, the Deathwing maintains a deliberately smaller core of perhaps 60 to 80 active members. This is not due to equipment limitations, but because trust must be earned slowly and tested thoroughly. Every warrior must be vouched for by multiple existing members. At the apex stands the Grand Master of the Deathwing, currently the legendary Belial, a warrior whose tactical brilliance is matched only by his absolute commitment to the hunt for the fallen. He reports directly to the Supreme Grand Master, but his authority within the Deathwing is absolute. When he speaks, entire strike forces mobilize without question. Below the Grand Master are the Knights, divided into distinct categories. The Deathwing Knights form the inner circle, warriors so trusted they alone may wield the ancient relics of the chapter. They are accompanied by Deathwing command squads, veterans responsible for coordinating complex operations across multiple theaters. The backbone consists of Terminator squads, each led by a sergeant who has proven not just combat abilities but discretion in chapter security matters. These squads specialize in different warfare forms, boarding actions, urban combat, siege breaking, but all share the same secondary mission, the hunt for the fallen. What makes the Deathwing unique is their complete operational autonomy. A squad can be deployed ostensibly to support Imperial forces, but their true mission may be entirely different. They might abandon Allied forces mid-battle if intelligence suggests a fallen angel is present elsewhere. They might spend months on a world not for military victory, but to track a single corrupted warrior. This autonomy extends to equipment and resources. The Deathwing maintains its own fleet elements, intelligence networks, and support staff, all sworn to the same oaths of secrecy. They can requisition materials, commandeer transport, and override other Dark Angels officers when a hunt demands it. Operations are planned from chambers deep within the rock that officially do not exist. Here, the Inner Circle maintains a great list, A constantly updated catalog of every known or suspected fallen angel, their locations, aliases, and activities. This list is their primary operational document, more important than any Codex Astartes. Training goes far beyond conventional military doctrine. Members learn interrogation techniques that would impress an inquisitor, information extraction methods that border on heretical, and psychological disciplines necessary to maintain absolute secrecy under extreme duress. They learn to compartmentalize information, recognize corruption in their brothers, and when necessary, eliminate threats to chapter security. The spiritual dimension cannot be understated. Every member undergoes regular ceremonies designed to reinforce their commitment to the hunt and acceptance of their burden. These rituals, conducted by the chapter's most senior interrogator chaplains, forge bonds stronger than blood, creating brotherhood that transcends normal understanding. Yet for all their elite status, the Deathwing lives with constant awareness of their own fragility. They know that discovery of their true purpose would mean not just their destruction, but the damnation of their entire chapter. This creates a unique paranoia, not chaos madness, but cold, calculating vigilance of warriors who know their greatest enemy might be standing beside them. These questions have shaped the Deathwing for 10,000 years, transforming them into something unique. Hunters who pursue their own reflection across the stars, carrying both the chapter's greatest shame and its only hope for redemption. Across the galaxy, in shadows between Imperial records, a war rages that few will ever know exists. It is not fought for territory or glory, but for something far more precious, the soul of a chapter that has carried shame for 10,000 years. The fallen angels are not merely traitors. They are living contradictions to everything the dark angels represent. Each one is a reminder that loyalty is not absolute, that even the Emperor's finest can fall, and that the line between heroism and heresy is sometimes drawn by despair, not corruption. When Caliban died and Luther's followers were cast into the warp, they were scattered across time and space like seeds of shame. Some emerged in the distant past, living lifetimes before the heresy began. Others materialized in the far future, appearing centuries after their supposed deaths. The warp cares nothing for linear time, and the fallen have become temporal refugees, living echoes of betrayal. What makes them dangerous is not martial prowess, though many retain space marine abilities. It is their knowledge. Each fallen angel carries secrets that could shatter the dark angel's facade. They know the truth of Caliban's destruction, Luther's rebellion, and most damning, that the dark angels have lied to the Imperium for 10 millennia. Some fallen have embraced damnation fully, becoming chaos champions who lead war bands while serving darker masters. These are easiest to deal with. Their corruption is obvious. The Deathwing can hunt them with righteous fury. Others are complex. Some genuinely repent, seeking atonement while ignorant of the damage their existence represents. Others have lost memories entirely, living as loyal servants while carrying proof of the Dark Angel's shame in their gene seed. A few have infiltrated other chapters, their identity hidden even from themselves. The hunt has consumed the Deathwing for 10 millennia. It demands not just military precision, but detective work rivaling the Inquisition. Every lead must be followed, every rumor investigated, every whisper of ancient armor pursued to its source. The process begins with the Watchers in the Dark, mysterious beings who provide intelligence through unknown means. Coordinates scratched in dust, names whispered in dreams, fragments that lead the Deathwing closer to their quarry. When leads are identified, the Deathwing mobilizes with surgical precision. They send strike teams, often single squads of Terminators operating under deep cover for years, gathering intelligence and preparing for the perfect moment to strike. Capturing a fallen angel is an art form. These are not ordinary heretics to be killed and forgotten. Each represents potential information about others, about lost relics, about Luther's rebellion's true scope. But there are also time bombs, and it can reveal the Dark Angel's secret and damn the entire chapter. Live capture is preferred, but extraordinarily difficult. Fallen angels are space marines with 10,000 years of hiding experience. They have learned paranoia. Trust no one. See betrayal in every shadow. Many have developed loyal follower networks who will die protecting them, unknowing their true identity. When capture proves impossible, the Deathwing's response is swift and absolute. The target is eliminated along with anyone who might have learned their nature. Entire cult cells have been wiped out to silence single witnesses. Remote outposts sterilized because someone asked too many questions. Successfully captured Fallen are brought to the rock's deepest chambers, to cells existing in no official records. There, interrogator chaplains begin extracting information while attempting to secure a confession. This is not conventional torture. It is spiritual battle, a contest of wills lasting centuries. The goal is not just intelligence, but absolution. The Dark Angels believe that if a fallen angel genuinely repents, acknowledges their betrayal's weight, and accepts righteous punishment, then some portion of the chapter's shame can be lifted. It is doctrine born of desperation rather than theology. Few fallen ever reach this point. Most resist until death, taking secrets to whatever fate awaits traitors. Others break entirely, minds shattered by their crime's weight and relentless interrogation pressure. A rare few achieve something like redemption, weeping as they confess and beg the Emperor's forgiveness. These confessions are recorded in the rock's most secure vaults, each a small victory in a war that may never end. But even success brings burdens. Each confirmed fallen often reveals others' existence, adding new names to the hunt list. The hunt's most maddening aspect is its scope. The warp's temporal effects mean new fallen can appear anytime, anywhere. The Deathwing may spend decades tracking down a group's last members, only to discover the warp has disgorged others predating their supposed origins by centuries. And then there is Cypher, the most enigmatic fallen, neither fully corrupt nor clearly repentant. He moves through the galaxy like a living riddle, sometimes helping Imperial forces, sometimes hindering them, always staying ahead of hunters who pursued him for millennia. Some believe he is the key to ending the hunt forever. Others fear he represents its ultimate futility. The hunt for the fallen has shaped the Deathwing into something unique, warriors who fight not for victory but redemption. Soldiers who measure success not in enemies slain, but secrets kept. Brothers who have learned that sometimes the greatest courage lies in carrying an unbearable burden in absolute silence. There are moments in history when legend crystallizes into reality, when myth becomes truth through blood and sacrifice. For the Deathwing, that moment came not in the grand theaters of galactic war, but on a forgotten world at the edge of Imperial space, a place that would transform them from elite warriors into something approaching the divine. The Plains world had no official designation in Imperial records. To the Administratum, it was simply another feral world used for Space Marine recruitment, its primitive tribes providing a steady stream of potential aspirants for the Dark Angels. But to the warriors who had been taken from its windswept grasslands as children, it was home, the place where they had learned to hunt, to survive, and understand that death was not an ending but a passage. When the distress signal reached the rock, it carried undertones that chilled even the most veteran Deathwing. The tribal shaman spoke of the star devils, of creatures that fell from the sky like living nightmares, of a corruption that twisted flesh and mind alike. The librarians who decoded the message recognized the signs immediately: Genestealer infestation and an advanced one. The response was swift but measured. A single Deathwing squad was dispatched, 5 Terminators led by Brother Sergeant Cloudrunner, himself a son of the Plains world. They were joined by hybrids, Two Heads Talking, Weasel Fierce, and Bloody Moon, warriors whose tribal names have been buried beneath layers of Imperial conditioning but never truly forgotten. As their Thunderhawk descended to the planet's atmosphere, the Deathwing could see the scope of the disaster below. The great tribal settlements that should have dotted the plains like jewels were gone, replaced by writhing masses of organic architecture that pulsed with alien life. The infestation had not just conquered the world, it had remade it in its own image. What they found in the ruins of their childhood homes was worse than conquest. The Genestealers had not simply killed the tribespeople, they had perverted them, transforming them into hybrid abominations that retained just enough human characteristics to be recognizable. Former shamans now served as cult leaders, their wisdom corrupted into alien doctrine. Warriors who had once hunted the great beasts of the plains now hunted their own kind in service to a patriarch whose psychic influence had turned an entire world into a living nightmare. The Deathwing faced a tactical situation that should have demanded immediate withdrawal and orbital bombardment. 5 Terminators against an entire world's worth of enemies was not a battle. It was suicide. But as they stood in the ruins of the settlement where Cloud Runner had been born, where Two Heads Talking had first heard the spirit speak, something changed in their hearts. This was not just another world to be cleansed. This was their world, their people, their responsibility. The children who had been taken from these planes to become space marines had been saved from this fate. But what are those left behind? What are the elders who had blessed their departure? The families who had proudly given their sons to the Star Warriors? The shamans who had taught them that true courage meant facing death without fear? In that moment, Brother Sergeant Cloud Runner made a decision that would echo through 10,000 years of chapter history. They would not withdraw. They would not call for reinforcement. They would stand and fight, not as Imperial Space Marines following tactical doctrine, but as sons of the Plains world honoring their ancestors. But first, they would perform the death ritual. Using clay and ash from their ruined homes, the 5 Terminators painted their armor white, the color of death in their tribal tradition, the hue worn by warriors who rode out knowing they would not return. It was not despair that drove them to this act, but acceptance. They had chosen their fate, and they would meet it with the same courage their ancestors had shown when facing the great beast of the plains. The battle that followed was unlike anything in the annals of space marine warfare. The Deathwing did not fight with the cold precision of Imperial doctrine, but with the fury of wrong spirits seeking vengeance. They carved through waves of hybrid cultists, their storm bolters roaring like thunder across the plains. They stood back to back in the ruins of sacred places, their power fists crushing abominations that had once been children. For 6 days and nights, they fought without rest, without reinforcement, without hope of survival. The Patriarch itself finally emerged from its underground lair, a creature of such alien malevolence that lesser warriors would have fled in terror. But the Deathwing had already accepted death. They had nothing left to fear. Two Heads Talking channeled the old spirits through his psychic gifts, calling down lightning that turned sand to glass. Weasel Fierce led the Xenos into carefully prepared kill zones, using the terrain like a master hunter. Bloody Moon stood guard over the sacred burial mounds, refusing to let the creatures defile the bones of the ancestors. When the Patriarch fell at last, its massive form split open by Cloud Runner's power sword. Something miraculous had occurred. The Plains world was cleansed, but more than that, the Deathwing had discovered something about themselves that would define them forever. They had fought not for the Imperium, not for the Emperor, not even for the chapter. They had fought for memory, for honor, for the simple truth that some things are worth dying for. And in that choice, they had found not death, but transformation. When rescue finally arrived, the search teams found 5 Terminators standing vigil over the Patriarch's corpse, their white armor scarred but unbroken, their spirits tempered in fires that had burned away everything unnecessary and left only the essential truth behind. From that day forward, the Deathwing would wear bone-white armor as a badge of honor, not the color of death, but the color of warriors who would face death and emerge victorious, not over their enemies, but over their own fear, their own doubt, their own mortality. In the deepest chambers of the rock, where starlight has never penetrated and silence weighs like a physical presence, rituals are performed that predate the Imperium itself. These are not ceremonies of celebration or triumph, but rites of burden, sacred acts that transform proud space marines into something far more complex and infinitely more dangerous. To become Deathwing is not an honor bestowed lightly. It is a transformation that changes a warrior's very soul. The selection process begins long before a candidate realizes he is being observed. Every dark angel who serves beyond the scout companies becomes subject to scrutiny that would make an inquisitor proud. His every action is noted, his every word weighed, his every decision analyzed for signs of the psychological fortitude necessary to bear the chapter's greatest secrets. The Watchers in the Dark play a crucial role in this process, though their exact methods remain mysterious even to the inner circle. These enigmatic beings observe potential candidates through means that transcend normal surveillance, reading patterns and behavior that suggest spiritual strength or weakness. A warrior may serve for decades without knowing that every battle, every moment of stress, every crisis of faith has been evaluated by inhuman eyes that see beyond the physical realm. The first true test comes when a candidate is selected for service in the Raven Wing, the chapter's second company. This is not coincidence. The hunt for fallen requires warriors who have proven their ability to operate independently, to think tactically, and most importantly, to ask no questions when orders seem to contradict conventional wisdom. Those who excel in the Raven Wing's shadowy operations mark themselves as potential Deathwing material. But excellence in battle is not enough. The candidate must demonstrate something far rarer, the ability to compartmentalize truth, to accept that some knowledge comes with price, and understand that loyalty sometimes requires lies. This is tested through carefully orchestrated scenarios where the warrior must choose between easy answers and difficult truths, between personal glory and chapter security. The final selection is made not by human judgment alone, but through consultation with the Watchers in the dark. In chambers that exist in no official schematics, the inner circle presents candidates to these mysterious beings, who render their verdict through signs that only the most senior chaplains can interpret. A candidate approved by the Watchers moves to the next phase. Those rejected simply continue their service, never knowing how close they came to a burden that might have destroyed them. The ritual of awakening marks the true beginning of transformation. The candidate is brought to the chamber of remembrance, deep within the rock's core, where the walls are carved with names, not of heroes, but of the fallen. Here, in absolute darkness save for a single candle, he is told the first truth, that not all dark angels remain loyal during the heresy, that some turn traitor not through chaos corruption, but through pride and doubt. This revelation breaks some men immediately. Despite all the testing, all the careful selection, some minds simply cannot accept that their chapter's honor is built upon a foundation of shame. These warriors are quietly removed from active service, their memories altered by psychic conditioning, their lives redirected to harmless duties within the rock's depths. Those who endure face the vigil of silence, 7 days and nights alone with the truth, contemplating what it means to serve a chapter that has lied to the Imperium for 10 millennia. They are given no food, no water, no comfort save the knowledge that their burden is shared by their brothers. Many emerge from this vigil fundamentally changed, their previous certainties replaced by a grim understanding of moral complexity. The physical transformation follows the spiritual one. The candidate is fitted for Terminator armor in ceremonies that blend ancient technology with mystical tradition. Each plate is blessed with oils drawn from Caliban's ruins, each servo blessed with litanies that invoke not the Emperor's glory but the chapter's shame. The armor becomes more than protection. It becomes a constant reminder of duty and burden. The painting of the armor white is the final step, performed by the candidate himself in absolute solitude. Using pigments mixed with ash from the Plains World Battle, he transforms his warplate from the chapter's dark green to bone white, the color of death accepted, of warriors who have moved beyond fear of mortality to embrace something larger than themselves. But the true initiation comes with the first hunt. New Deathwing warriors are assigned to veteran squads pursuing fallen angels, where they learn that their enemies are not Xenos or heretics, but their own gene brothers, warriors who carry the same heritage, the same training, the same fundamental humanity. This knowledge completes their transformation from simple soldiers into something unique in the Imperium. Hunters who understand their prey intimately, because they are fundamentally the same. The rituals do not end with initiation. Deathwing warriors undergo regular ceremonies designed to reinforce their commitment and test their resolve. The rite of recommitment requires them to recite the names of known fallen, while inflicting minor wounds upon themselves. Not as penance, but as a reminder that truth often comes with pain. The most sacred ritual is the reading of the list, performed annually in the presence of the entire inner circle. Each Deathwing warrior hears the names of all known fallen, their crimes, their last known locations, their potential threats to chapter security. This ceremony can last for days, as the litany of shame is recited in full, ensuring that no warrior forgets the scope of their burden. Those who serve long enough in the Deathwing may eventually be inducted into the inner circle itself, gaining access to even deeper secrets and greater responsibilities. But this too comes with ritual, the ceremony of final truth, where the candidate learns not just that fallen exists, but why they fell, what Luther's rebellion truly represented, and how the lion's own actions contributed to the chapter's eternal shame. These rituals serve multiple purposes beyond simple tradition. They create bonds stronger than blood between warriors who share unbearable knowledge. They provide psychological frameworks for coping with moral complexity. And most importantly, they ensure that the secrets remain secret, that the burden is carried by those strong enough to bear it, and that the hunt continues regardless of personal cost. To the outside observer, these ceremonies might seem excessive, even heretical in their divergence from imperial doctrine. But for the Deathwing, they are essential. The difference between warriors and monsters, between purpose and madness, between carrying shame and being consumed by it. When the Deathwing goes to war, they do not march, they materialize. In flashes of azure lightning and the screaming displacement of reality itself, these bone-armored giants appear where the enemy least expects them, bringing with them not just overwhelming firepower, but the accumulated weight of 10,000 years of righteous fury. To face the Deathwing in battle is to confront warriors who have transcended normal concept of victory and defeat, who fight not for glory, but for something far more fundamental, the redemption of an entire chapter soul. The foundation of Deathwing warfare is the Terminator armor that encases every warrior in their ranks. Unlike other chapters that reserve such suits for special occasions, the Deathwing lives within their tactical dreadnought plate, becoming one with machines that are as much reliquary as they are weapon. Each suit is a masterwork of architect, its systems dating back to the Great Crusade and maintained by tech marines who treat their duties as sacred ritual rather than mere maintenance. The armor itself tells the story of their burden. Where other Terminators might bear the heraldry of victories won or enemies slain, Deathwing suits carry more subtle markings. Oath paper sealed in wax, purity seals inscribed with names that must never be spoken aloud, and servo skulls that whisper litanies of repentance rather than battle hymns. The bone-white ceramite is not painted for aesthetics, but consecrated through rituals that bind the wearer to his burden as surely as adamantium binds the armor's plates. The tactical doctrine of the Deathwing reflects their unique mission parameters. While other elite formations might deploy in support of larger strategic objectives, the Deathwing operates with surgical precision focused on specific targets. Their teleportation capabilities allow them to appear anywhere on a battlefield without warning, but more importantly, they can extract just as quickly leaving behind only silence and the smoldering remains of their objectives. This hit-and-run capability serves a dual purpose. Operationally, it allows small squads to achieve objectives that will require entire companies of conventional forces. But strategically, it maintains a secrecy that is paramount to their true mission. The Deathwing can eliminate threats, recover personnel, or secure objectives without leaving witnesses who might ask uncomfortable questions about their true purpose. Their weaponry reflects this emphasis on precision over raw destruction. The Stormbolter, twin-linked and capable of devastating rates of fire, serves as their primary ranged weapon. But these are not standard-issue weapons. Each has been consecrated in the chapter's deepest armories. Its ammunition blessed with oils from Caliban's ruins, and inscribed with microscript prayers that invoke not the Emperor's glory but the necessity of justice. In close combat, the Deathwing wields weapons that blur the line between tool and symbol. Power fists crackle with energies that can punch through the thickest armor, while lightning claws tear through flesh and spirit alike. But it is the Thunder Hammer that truly defines their combat doctrine. Massive two-handed weapons that strike with the force of orbital bombardment, each blow carrying the weight of ancient oaths and bitter necessity. The most elite Deathwing Knights wield maces of absolution, unique weapons that exist nowhere else in the Imperium. These power maces are crafted not just to kill but to sanctify, their heads containing reliquaries filled with sacred artifacts. Fragment of Caliban's soil, drops of oil from the Lion's own armor, or ashes from the pyres of redeemed fallen. When these weapons strike, they do not merely destroy, they absolve, granting a kind of spiritual cleansing to those deemed worthy of redemption. The Storm Shield completes the classical Deathwing loadout, but these are not mere defensive tools. Each shield contained conversion field generators that can deflect even Lascanon blasts, while their surfaces bear iconography that tells the story of the chapter's eternal hunt. To raise a Storm Shield is to bear witness to the Deathwing's purpose, carrying forward the memory of every fallen captured or killed in the chapter's long war for redemption. Specialized equipment further distinguishes the Deathwing from conventional Terminator forces. Assault cannons modified with consecrated ammunition can fire shells that disrupt psychic phenomena as well as physical targets, essential when hunting fallen who have learned to manipulate warp energies. Cyclone missile launchers provide heavy fire support, but their warheads contain more than conventional explosives. Many are loaded with sanctified promethium that burns with purifying fire. The Deathwing's tactics emphasize overwhelming local superiority achieved through precision deployment, rather than announcing their presence with lengthy bombardments. They appear without warning in the heart of enemy formations, relying on shock and their superior equipment to achieve rapid victory. Their combat doctrine prioritizes capture over killing. When facing human enemies, every prisoner might provide intelligence about fallen activities. But perhaps their most distinctive tactical element is their use of silence. Deathwing squads communicate through hand signals, vox clicks, and subtle armor movements that create a coordination bordering on telepathic. This silence serves practical purposes. It prevents enemy interception of communications, but also spiritual ones. The Deathwing has learned that some truths are too dangerous to speak aloud, even in battle. Their deployment patterns reflect their dual nature as elite warriors and secret police. Officially, they might be assigned to break enemy strong points or eliminate high-value targets. Unofficially, their true mission might be to investigate reports of space marine activity in regions where none should exist, or to eliminate witnesses who have seen too much. The aftermath of Deathwing operations is as carefully managed as the battles themselves. Battle damage is often staged to suggest different causes. A precisely targeted strike might be disguised as an accidental ammunition explosion, while the elimination of specific individuals might be hidden within broader casualty reports. The Deathwing has learned that victory is not just about defeating enemies, but about controlling the narrative of their defeat. Supporting elements work in careful coordination with Deathwing operations. Tech Marines specialize in data recovery and memory extraction accompany many missions, while apothecaries trained in rapid gene seed analysis can determine if fallen enemies carry the genetic markers of the Dark Angels. Even their chaplains serve dual roles, providing spiritual guidance while also conducting field interrogations when potential fallen are captured alive. The psychological impact of fighting alongside the Deathwing cannot be understated. Allied forces often report feeling simultaneously inspired and unsettled by their presence. These warriors fight with mechanical precision, yet seem driven by emotions too deep for normal understanding. Their very presence changes the character of a battle, transforming conflict from struggles for tactical advantage into spiritual contests between order and chaos, redemption and damnation. To witness the Deathwing in combat is to see warriors who move beyond conventional concepts of courage and fear, who fight not for personal glory or even the Emperor's vision, but for something far more personal and infinitely more costly. The chance to balance scales have been weighted with shame for 10,000 years. In the heart of the rock, beneath layers of adamantium and silence, there exists a truth so dangerous that even knowing it exists can be a death sentence. The inner circle is not merely the Dark Angel's command structure. It is a labyrinth of secrets within secrets, where knowledge is doled out in carefully measured portions to warriors who have proven they can bear the weight of damnation without breaking. For the Deathwing, the inner circle represents both their ultimate goal and their greatest burden, the place where truth and madness dance on the edge of a blade that has been falling for 10 millennia. The genius of the inner circle lies not in what it reveals, but in what it conceals. Every Dark Angel believes he serves a chapter with ancient traditions and mysterious ways. Most accept this without question, content to fight in the Emperor's name, while trusting their superiors to guide them wisely. But beneath this surface loyalty lies a structure of compartmentalized truth that would make the most paranoid inquisitor weep with envy. The first layer belongs to the uninitiated, battle brothers who know only that their chapter values secrecy and maintains traditions that stretch back to the Great Crusade. They fight alongside Deathwing squads, witness their bone-white armor and silent efficiency, but ask no questions about their true purpose. This ignorance is not weakness, but mercy, for these warriors carry burdens enough without adding the weight of ultimate knowledge. The second layer encompasses those who have begun to suspect that all is not as it seems. Veterans who have noticed the way conversations stop when they enter rooms, sergeants who have seen Deathwing squads deploy on missions that make no tactical sense, captains who have been ordered to withdraw from battles that could have been won. These warriors live with doubt gnawing at their certainty, but they lack the context to understand what their suspicions truly mean. The third layer is populated by those who have been granted partial truth, knowledge that the chapter hunts specific enemies, that these foes are particularly dangerous heretics who must be destroyed at all costs. They know enough to understand why secrecy is necessary, why operations must sometimes be conducted without imperial oversight, why certain records must be sealed. But they do not know the identity of these enemies, nor why their elimination is so crucial to the chapter's honor. The Deathwing exists primarily within the fourth layer, where the first great truth is revealed, that the enemies they hunt are fallen angels, former Dark Angels who turned traitor during the closing days of the Horus Heresy. This knowledge transforms everything, recontextualizing every mission, every deployment, every moment of secrecy within a framework of shame and redemption. To learn this truth is to understand that the chapter's honor is built upon a foundation of lies, and that their loyalty is measured not by what they reveal, but by what they conceal. But even within the Deathwing, not all knowledge is shared equally. Junior members know only that fallen exist and must be hunted. Senior warriors learn their numbers, their names, their probable locations. Veterans gain access to interrogation transcripts, mission reports, and the grim arithmetic of a war that spans millennia and may never end. The fifth layer belongs to the Knights of the Inner Circle, Deathwing veterans who have proven their absolute loyalty and psychological stability. These warriors know not just that the fallen exist, but why they fell. The story of Luther's rebellion, the destruction of Caliban, the lion's disappearance. They understand that the chapter's shame runs deeper than simple betrayal, that it encompasses failures of leadership, brotherhood, and trust that echo through every aspect of their existence. The sixth layer is reserved for the most senior members of the Inner Circle, Master Interrogator Chaplains, Grand Masters, and the Supreme Grand Master himself. These individuals know the full scope of the Fallen's crimes, the extent of their infiltration into imperial institutions, and the true cost of the hunt in blood, resources, and imperial trust. They carry the weight of strategic decisions that affect not just a chapter, but the entire Imperium's stability. But there exists a seventh layer, one so secret that even its existence is known only to a handful of individuals. Here lie the darkest truths, knowledge of what the Lion truly discovered before his disappearance, the real reasons why some Fallen escaped into the warp, and perhaps most terrifying of all, the possibility that the hunt itself has become the very corruption it seeks to eliminate. The Watchers in the Dark occupy a unique position within this hierarchy, existing outside normal chains of command, while somehow knowing truths that span every layer. Their silent presence serves as both guidance and warning. They are reminders that some knowledge is too dangerous for human minds to fully comprehend, that there are truths so fundamental that even angels fear to speak them aloud. The psychological toll of this layered truth cannot be understated. Warriors within the Inner Circle often exhibit behaviors that outsiders find disturbing. Sudden silences, obsessive attention to security protocols, and a general reluctance to form close bonds with those outside their circle of knowledge. This is not paranoia, but adaptation. The natural response of minds that have learned to navigate between truth and deception as a matter of survival. The process of advancement through these layers is never guaranteed and rarely requested. Promotion within the Inner Circle comes not through ambition, but through demonstration of spiritual strength, tactical necessity, and most importantly, the ability to bear additional weight without breaking. Some warriors spend centuries at the same level of knowledge, not because they lack ability, but because their superiors judge them to have reached their optimal burden. The most tragic members of the Inner Circle are those who have advanced too quickly or learned too much too soon. These broken warriors populate the rock's deepest chambers, their minds shattered by truths they cannot process, their loyalty unquestionable, but their usefulness ended. They serve as living warnings of the price of knowledge, reminders that some burdens can only be carried by those specifically forged for such weight. For the Deathwing, the Inner Circle represents both aspiration and dread. To advance deeper into its mysteries is to gain greater purpose and understanding, but also to shoulder burdens that will reshape their very souls. They serve not just as warriors, but as guardians of a truth so complex that it requires an entire structure of lies to contain it, protectors of secrets that could save or damn their chapter, depending on how they are revealed. In the end, the Inner Circle's greatest achievement is not the knowledge it preserves, but the ignorance it maintains, ensuring that the Dark Angels can continue to serve the Imperium, while carrying within their hearts truths that would destroy everything they claim to represent. The galaxy burns with a new fire. The Great Rift tears reality apart. Demons walk among the stars, and the Imperium bleeds from wounds that may never heal. Yet in this age of endings, the Deathwing continues their eternal hunt with renewed urgency, for the chaos of the era Indomitus has brought their greatest fear to life. The Fallen are returning in greater numbers than ever before. The opening of the Cicatrix Maledictum has disrupted the warp currents that scattered Luther's followers across time and space. Ancient traitors who vanished millennia ago now emerge from temporal storms, bearing weapons and knowledge from eras that should not exist. Some appear unchanged by their journey through the Immaterium, while others carry corruption that makes them barely recognizable as former Space Marines. Lion L. Johnson's return has complicated everything. The Primarch's awakening brought hope to the chapter, but also questions that threaten the Inner Circle's carefully maintained structure. His formation, the Risen, a mysterious force that may include redeemed fallen, challenges 10,000 years of doctrine. Some Deathwing veterans struggle to reconcile their lifelong mission with their Gene Father's apparent willingness to forgive. The Primaris reinforcements present their own challenges. These new Space Marines know nothing of the chapter's shame, bringing tactical doctrines that prioritize transparency over secrecy. Integrating them into the Deathwing requires careful conditioning, gradually exposing them to truths that could shatter their faith in everything they believed. Belisarius calls interference adds another layer of complexity. The Archmagos' modifications to Space Marine physiology have created warriors stronger than their predecessors, but also potentially harder to control. The Inner Circle watches these new additions carefully, uncertain whether enhanced minds will prove more resistant to the psychological pressures of carrying ultimate knowledge. The hunt itself has evolved. Where once the Deathwing pursued scattered individuals, they now face organized groups of fallen who seem to coordinate their activities across the galaxy. Intelligence suggests that Luther himself may have escaped his imprisonment, possibly gathering his scattered sons for some final gambit. Yet the Deathwing endures, adapting to new threats while maintaining their ancient purpose. Their bone-white armor now appears on battlefields across the Dark Imperium, a reminder that some oaths transcend even the galaxy's death throes. As our journey through the shadows ends, we return to that fundamental question that has haunted the Dark Angels for 10 millennia. Are they the Imperium's most loyal servants or its greatest deceivers? The answer, like everything else about the Deathwing, exists in the space between truth and lies. The Deathwing represents something unique in the galaxy, warriors who have learned that absolute loyalty sometimes demands absolute deception. They serve an Imperium that would destroy them if it knew their truth, protect civilians who would flee in terror if they understood what walked among them, and fight alongside brothers who would brand them traitors if the full scope of their shame was revealed. In their bone-white armor, they carry more than weapons and equipment. They bear the weight of an entire chapter's sins, the hope of redemption that may never come, and the knowledge that their very existence challenges everything the Imperium claims to represent. They are living contradictions, exemplars of purity who guard the darkest secrets, hunters who pursue reflections of themselves across the stars. Perhaps this is their true purpose, not to find redemption, but to demonstrate that it is possible to carry unbearable burdens without breaking, to serve a cause greater than themselves even when that cause might condemn them, to choose duty over comfort, silence over truth, burden over ignorance. The Deathwing's greatest victory is not the fallen they have captured or the secrets they have kept, but their simple persistence. For 10,000 years, they have continued the hunt, maintained the silence, and borne the weight of knowledge that would destroy lesser warriors. They have proven that even the most damning truth can be transformed into purpose. In the end, they remain what they have always been, the Emperor's most ruthless hunters, guardians of secrets that could damn them all, and perhaps the only hope their chapter has for true redemption. The hunt continues, the silent endures, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, bone-white giants walk their eternal vigil, carrying shame and honor in equal measure. They are the Deathwing, and they will never stop hunting.